Hey, Robbie. I wanted to go through my annotated um, corrections of your free response. As you can see, when I downloaded your picture and I put it in a document and printed it, it was super hard for me to read. So I was going back and forth between my phone, which had a better picture, and this document. So I'm going to ask if you wouldn't mind pulling out your original, because this isn't going to show much of anything. But I've also set you detailed solutions, and I may jump over here and refer to some things just to make it easier and in case you can't read my writing. So part 3A, where you were asked to come up with the constructor. I didn't see any issue with that. So sometimes you'll see me underline things, and that's just me tracking, like the name of your 2D array is this, is that what you returned, and also other things. Now in part B, there was some things that I had some concerns about. This is the one where you're asked to flip either along the horizontal or along the vertical. And when I looked at your code, and the first, when I looked at your code, let's go jump to a solution real fast. So it said, using the Boolean variable horizontal. If horizontal, the outer loop's going to be rows and the inner loop is going to be columns. And then when I looked at your solution, okay, I just might have messed that up. I think it looks okay. So just ignore that comment here. But I did have a concern about the fact that when you instantiated the 2D array, you didn't really do that properly. So here is my attempt to instantiate a 2D array image based on what you sent, the 2D array that you sent image. If you have trouble reading that, then I would refer you to this beautiful solution here, where basically you needed to do something like that. And I just think you left out some steps in all of that. And then, okay, so if it's vertical on the else part, I guess I'm wondering why you only used one loop. At least I only found one loop. So I think that the only difference between whether it was flipped horizontally or vertically is the order of the for loops. So the outer is row, the inner is column, but on the vertical flip, the outer is column and the inner is row. Or in other words, the first one's row major order and the second one is column major order. The other thing to double check on yours is also this calculation of finding what cell you're supposed to be in. And I think you did forget this -1 in each of them. So I'm going to ask that you take a look at that and I guess go from there. All right, so moving on to B. Now, this one I had an even tougher time working through. It was really hard for me to read. So if, I misinterpreted something, I apologize. And you also use, some of this notation that I know it works because the first time you did it, I tried it because I'm not familiar with it and it seemed to work. But I'm not sure if that's affecting some of my comments later on because, like I said, I'm not familiar with it. So to begin, so this is the family one. So in part A, you're supposed to look for matches. The first concern I have is when you're checking strings. So you say person, get name, and then you use double equals and name. Well, name is a string, and remember, strings are objects. So in order to check for equality, you need to use the equals method. So that's what I'm trying to show here. And then I just made a note that when you were checking the other element, which was, I think, age. Is that right? I'm trying to go from memory. Yeah. Since age is primitive data type, it's okay for that instance data. Now, so for part B, where you were asked to write the family class, so one concern I have is that when you instantiated the adult and the children array list, first of all you did inside of the constructor was create a reference variable for an array list. So you created an array list that will store person objects called adults, and you created another array list called children that will store person objects. So this is where we get into the greater than or less than 18 kind of a thing. What you should do here is you should right after the class, where up at the top where you would normally put instance data, you would want to move this up there. Then inside of this family class is where, actually, let's go to the next page. Let's just take a look at the solution. So what I'm saying is put this at the top of your program. And then family just ends up being a default constructor, which they're not showing here. So you're creating and instantiating the array list up at the top. Then for get age, or I'm sorry, no, for add, excuse me, not get age. For add, now personally, the College Board is going to be looking for you to code like this, just simple if else's. And this is where I have to defer to your syntax here and assume it's correct because I didn't test it this time. So I think this is your syntax, and I think this is going to be okay. And then for is in family, I believe you did the same thing here where you used your different syntax, but I believe the results are going to be the same. Now this last part for part C is in the neighborhood. They were looking for you to do a for each loop or a for loop, just a regular old for loop, and then use is in the family, which is a method that you coded previously. And this is where I got interrupted earlier. So I'm going to take a quick look at your text while I have you here and make sure that you did use that. So give me a brief moment, see if I can tell. Family streamline. Okay, so I think this is a bit of a problem. So I think it says in the problem, let me go back and double check. You may assume that the family class and its is in family method work as intended, regardless of what you wrote in part B. You must use them appropriately in order to receive full credit for part C. So when I'm looking at your solution, I just don't see you using is in family. So sometimes in the on the AP exam, they're going to ask you to do like a part A, a part B, a part C. And then in one of the parts, such as this example, it says in part C, they're expecting you to use the method from part B. So you assume it's correct and you use it. And I didn't see you use it. So they would take points off for that. So that's something that you need to watch out for. So I'm going to send both this. You're going to have both this, where I made some notes, and you're going to have the solution. And this solution has a lot of information in here that you're free to look at if you have any questions. So if it's not making sense, just let me know, and I'm happy to work with you. Thanks.